Newly minted founders need to quickly build credibility and social capital while building their business. Our guest is passionate about helping founders create a compelling story and then amplify that story through guest appearances on aligned podcasts. We're going to have a delicious conversation today. Stay tuned for the Startup Life live show. Let's glow. Woohoo! Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into the Startup Life Live Show. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, 4 times founder and startup champion, 2 founders around the world. And after raising 4 businesses of my own, I know exactly what you're crawling through every single day, feeling like 1 minute you're popping the champagne and the next minute you're crying in it. So I am thanking you from the bottom of my heart for carving out time to up your founder game while cheering on another founder, because you are going to get some inspiration from this conversation and some solutions that you may need for your startup. If you are wherever you're watching the show, we have, of course, our wonderful podcast listeners. I'm so grateful. And to you viewers, both live and via replay, be sure to like the video wherever you're watching from, because we're live right now on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Whew, I remember all of those. And if you're tuning in from YouTube, I would be so grateful for you to hit that subscribe button and join the wonderful and delicious YouTube channel. To receive an alert whenever I post a new show, please join the Startup Life Live show. The Startup Life Live meetup group on Meetup. And this way you'll receive an alert whenever I post a new show, because you never know. I may be interviewing a founder who is in your industry, and you'll be able to get so much great information from that founder. And again, up your founder game. If you like listening to the show, then be sure to tune in to the Startup Life Live Show podcast. You can find it on my website, or you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. Sometimes it's easier than trying to keep the app open with YouTube for the video. And if you resonate with the Startup Life Live show's mission of amplifying diverse founder voices while serving first-time founders around the world, please reach out to me to learn more about how you can make a greater impact on the startup ecosystem through sponsoring the Startup Life Live show. You can just reach out to me, Ande at andelyons.com. So I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. She is so phenomenal. I'm crazy about this woman. It is the one and only Brandy Whalen. Let me just put up some artwork from her wonderful business. She's the co-founder of Kitcaster, a podcast booking agency that books podcast interviews for funded startup founders, entrepreneurs with exits, and C-suite execs. Her passion is to help people quilt together patches of their personal, professional, and visionary journey to create a compelling story, and then amplify that story through guest appearances on podcasts. How wonderful is that? So let me just bring her into the show with a hearty welcome and a lot of clapping. Welcome to the show, Brandy.
Yay. Thank you, Ande. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. I just love everything that you're doing and your background and who you be in the world. Where are you hanging out from?
I'm hanging out from my office, which is also my bedroom in Denver, Colorado.
There we go. Denver's in the house today, everybody. So we got Denver, we've got Boston here. If you are in the comment area, share with us where you're tuning in from. Let us know. We'll celebrate that as well. Hey, Brent from Ottawa, Canada, Canada, sending love. Diversity person that supports Ande and her show. Folks, you have to follow Brent on Twitter. I'm telling you, he does Twitter spaces and he's really amplifying diverse voices, other abled and neurodiverse voices, which are so important. Brent, I just love the work that you're doing in the world. And I want to remind folks that, where is it? Amplify your brand. Oh my gosh, share your business name, one-liner, and website URL in the comments, and we will showcase and celebrate you and your wonderful work live during the show. It's always important. This is evergreen content, folks. So you want to make sure that you get up on a screen like this. Someone could be listening later, and I could be mentioning your name, your website, your one-liner. Maybe you'll get some customers, maybe some brand awareness. You never know. So be sure to do that. And My pleasure. Brenda saying thank you. And Cartera from New York. Hey, how's
All
it going?
right. Sarah?
Right down the road from Boston, you are. So happy you're tuning in. So, folks, and Brandy, I have to read this, folks, from Brandy's LinkedIn. Okay. I feel so passionate about this. And moms, parents, I got to tell you, parenting needs representation. So, this, along with all her other incredible experiences on LinkedIn, Brandy has listed something that's very important. Job title, Raising Humans. Company name, Whalen Enterprise, full time, from January 2007 to present, Denver, Colorado. Raising 3 emotionally intelligent men to become good humans. Too many skill sets leveraged here would certainly exceed the 2,000 character limit.
It's fun.
Oh, come on. Motherhood and parenting needs this kind of representation, folks. I got to tell you, go over and see. And Brandy's LinkedIn will be in the show notes, and I'll pop it maybe into the comments here. But anyway, go check it out. And if you're raising babies and while you're raising a business, or just raising babies, period, please put that in. It's a phenomenal experience. And all the patience and compassion and communication skills and handling really hairy, scary moments all come in handy for everything else you do. Am I right, Brandy?
Yeah, it's a juggling act. And I love to hear people's experiences because it's just fun to share. And some days
Right.
it's beautiful and you have these amazing moments where you're like, yes, I'm doing everything right. And then other times you're like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
Right.
So I want to hear it all.
That's
Share it with
right.
me.
Please share with Brandy, everybody. And you can find her on all the social media platforms. All the links to find her will be in the show notes. Aristotle, it is so good to see you. And Aristotle has shared his website URL, askaristotle.co, and he's helping people and organizations grow. Thank you, Aristotle. We're cheering you on. Congratulations. You rock. Keep it moving. I love, love, love that. All right. This is everybody knows this is my startup question, right? Of the show, which is there you were minding your own business when an idea popped into your head? What happened that called you to launch your first business and become an entrepreneur, Brandy?
Oh my goodness. So I've had a lot of calls and it started when I was 10. I started a newspaper
Oh my gosh. So you
when
were
I
one
was
of these
in
kids that was
4th grade.
hustling. Yes.
It had everything. I interviewed teachers. It was me and a couple of friends, but I was definitely directing everyone and being super bossy, telling them what they needed to do. We had like a Dear Brandy column where people could write it. So I've always had this entrepreneurial bug. I've had a lot of ideas that were half baked that I could never get off the ground. And then I started my first real business in 2013.
Wow.
Yeah,
And I love that you
yeah.
said real because, folks, if you're hustling before you become an adult, that's pretty awesome. And if you make a little money at the same time, but that isn't so much as necessary as understanding what the hustle is involved and taking an idea and turning it into a reality, I think is so important. But you did your first reel. Had you been working at other companies first?
Yeah, I had. I'd worked at a company. It was actually here in Denver. It was my first like big girl job out of college, and I worked in sales. So that was my first role.
Great. And
Yeah.
so you started your own business and you said, you know what? I had this early life experience, a kind of love for this. But it seems to me when I reviewed your background, you were compelled to do storytelling, pulling together the fabric of people's lives into a cohesive, quick snapshot that people could relate to.
Yeah,
Why?
absolutely. I
Why
don't
did
know. It's something, I've always been drawn to. And when I started doing PR in 2013, I just really stumbled into this. I was a mom. I had left the corporate world. I was trying to kind of figure out what my next move was. And another
Yeah.
mom at my kid's school was like, you're actually really good at this whole business thing and you should come work with me. So I did. And she actually pushed me. She's an amazing female entrepreneur and she pushed me to start my own business. So without her, I don't know if I would have had I can think of watching her do it and her basically being like, "It's okay. You're gonna
Right.
fall and you're gonna get back up and everything's gonna be fine." And
I
really coached me through everything, which
I
is
love that. That's like startup sisterhood right there.
it is true startup sisterhood. Even gave me a few first clients to kind of really get me
Oh,
going. So I owe a lot to her.
I'm there's lots of threads and conversations with female founders, how women, maybe a family or a friend who helped fund, helped add wind to the sail. I love that. And meanwhile, you're raising humans,
Yeah.
extraordinary humans, to be great men in the world. And that, what compelled you to keep going with entrepreneurship? Because now you're starting to see what's really happening. You had to do customer acquisition, you had to figure out, how do I monetize, how do I help feed my family? What was it about those experiences that you learned so much to prepare you for what you're doing today?
Oh gosh, I learned so much. I mean, throughout that first initial experience that I had owning my own business, one of the biggest takeaways was it was public relations. So it was very much client focused, client centric, and I wanted to please and do everything so well that I was on call all the time. If a client wanted something, I would drop everything and attend to their needs. And I realized that that is not a healthy way to do anything. And not healthy for me and not healthy for my employees because ultimately, like, that stress would come down on me and then I would feed that into my employees.
Right.
So when I started Kitcaster with my co-founder, realizing that, you know what, we have boundaries, we need to have boundaries in order to be effective at our jobs, to be effective leaders. You have to create a container to work within, and you have to be very clear about what that container is, and be clear with your clients, and they'll respect it. As soon as I was able to articulate, like, here's our working hours, here's what the expectations are for this campaign, it was amazing how it was like magic, and I hadn't done that before. It was like the
So
simplest
instead
thing.
of like always dropping everything you were doing to jump to the beck and call of your customers, because you wanted to make sure they had a great customer experience, you were able to communicate right up front. This is how we're going to deliver. This is how we're going to communicate. These are the hours we're going to be delivering. And that set not only the framework up for them, but I'm seeing it set the framework up for you so that you had boundaries.
Absolutely, and my team, because I think that's a really important skill set to
Yeah.
learn. Not only boundaries with your clients, but boundaries with your team. Like, I tell my employees all the time, you have an idea of what you wanna get done in the day, in the week, in the month, and you own that time, and you have
That's
to
right.
protect it. So if I'm trying to throw a meeting on your calendar and you already have something going on during that time, even if it's deep work, just say, "Hey, can't wait for this meeting. Let's do it next week."
That's right. Doesn't have to absolutely positively be delivered immediately. I
No.
love that, and I know Whitney White, who has a wonderful business called Take Back Your Time. I know she's going, "Yay!" right now, and Beth Santos, who's the founder of Life Bio, which is a phenomenal how to bring the memories to somebody who happens to be in memory care so that the workers can understand who this person is and have an appreciation for their life journey. She, 14, 15, 16 years she's had her business, and she always carved out the weekend so she could spend it with her family.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
another thing, Andy, like, protecting yourself. I would if I were with my kids and I got a text message from a client, I, of course, would immediately tune out. I'd be half in to whatever was happening in my
Right.
house, but also mostly tuned in to what was happening on my phone.
Yeah.
And that just is not a good way, especially if you're raising humans.
Yeah.
You have to be attentive, and you have to create that space where there are no distractions. You are there, you're present.
Absolutely. Unless, of course, it's softball, early baseball days when which is like watching paint dry. So
Yeah,
I did give
take your
myself,
computer, it's
yeah,
fine.
that's okay. But anyway, so I want to say hello to Cartera again. So this is at Pay Cartera, and they partner with creators and brands to facilitate a community layer around live virtual events. Oh my gosh, you're singing my song, that generate higher revenue and more cohesive experiences than subscriptions or advertising. Bravo, Katera. That is a need that is very much needed, especially with the virtual events that are out there. Pop in your website so we can, but we'll follow Pay Cartera everywhere you go, of course. And I'll have that in the show notes for folks. And how much do I love seeing this incredible queen right here, Edith Najee. My
Hi, Edith.
gosh, it's so happy to see you. She's coming in from Kenya, folks. All right.
Amazing.
And she is all about bringing African entrepreneurship to more lives in Africa and really serving those entrepreneurs in Africa with her phenomenal and beautiful platform, Ariel for Africa. I think that's it, right. Yes. Edith's going to say yes. And she's saying, oh, wow, protecting yourself. Right on to you, Brandy. So thank you so much. But folks, you got to check out what Edith is doing. Ariel, I think it's for Africa, but it might be of Africa. Edith, pop in the URL for me into the comments. Speaking of comments, everybody, before we move on to learn more about Brandy's experience with Kitcaster, I'm giving away Arlen's book today. It's about damn time. And because you're here and you're commenting, you will be part of the wheel that I run at the end of the show. So you might be a winner. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And Edith is confirming, yes, it's Ariel for Africa. Thank you, Edith. Oh, great. That's wonderful. Sending you much love too. And Brent is, of course, saying diverse workforce is important. Yes, it is, Brent. And that's another beauty that we have now with the remote working, is that our diverse folks can, they don't have to deal with the office environment, because sometimes our neurodiverse folks have a harder time with this. And yes, Ariel for Africa. Woohoo. And Rebecca. Okay, Brandy, give me just one more second to just spotlight the amazing Rebecca. More. She is a coach, a founder coach for female founders. And she has this brand new platform she's launching called the Founders Test Kitchen. I think I got that right, Rebecca. So that's where you can test your idea with other founders, even if you're bringing something new to the plate. So she's phenomenal. Everybody follow Rebecca Moore, hop on LinkedIn and grab her info. All right, Brandy, I got to tell you, your transition into Kitcaster, I would love to find out what compelled you to join your co-founder to create an agency that you can help book folks for podcasts. And so talk a little bit about that journey for launching and building.
Sure. So, throughout my entire career, this idea of, and it took me a while to realize this, but the stories that people have and bringing them to life has always been a thread for me. And watching my PR clients go on podcasts, which I wasn't solely focused in on podcasts, but I would sprinkle them into a campaign.
Yeah.
And their faces would just light up after every interview. And they would always say, hey, that was awesome. I want to do more of that. And kind of realizing that it not only was it a good opportunity for them to talk about whatever it is that they're doing in the world professionally, but also personally. And then connecting with somebody that they didn't even know, but having like a real authentic conversation for a good amount of time. We're talking
Yes.
like 30 to 60 minutes. And I think that just checked and filled all of those boxes for my clients. And I kind of was getting tired of writing press releases, and I
Right.
was
And
like,
so,
you know what? It's
and
time to move.
would you help them be media prepared? Meaning help them with their story, make sure that they had something that they could just flow right out of their mouth if the camera or a mic were put in their face?
Yeah, but I worked with them on more of the traditional media side, which is shorter form. A lot of it is approved after it's written. So there's some layers
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And until I got into Kitcaster, I didn't really realize how important it is to do a podcast specific training, which is very different from traditional media.
All right. So we got to talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean, usually I go into some other details right now, folks, but I want to know, what does that actually mean as somebody who's had a podcast for you or 4 different podcasts?
Well, if you think about like what draws people in, as
Mhm.
human beings, we are drawn in to stories, right? So throughout our entire history, from the beginning of time, we are centered around stories. And podcasts provide this unique opportunity to bring stories to life. And we can do that throughout the entire interview, regardless of what's being asked. You can talk about your personal, your professional journey, but also pulling in some of those stories that it's like that people can relate to. They're like, oh yeah, like I've felt that way before. And you're bringing them along for the conversation. And that is what is so different with podcasts versus traditional media.
Excellent. So you had to set up the platform. You had to come up with the name. Why Kitcaster?
Well, that was my co-founder. He's great
Okay.
at coming up with names.
Oh,
He
good.
is and he had a podcast in Denver for 8 years. We were colleagues, friends, and
Mhm.
we were like, "Well, let's try to do something together. This is gonna be fun." Um, so it was easy to come together and launch
So you
Kitcaster.
were bringing your agency experience,
Mhm.
right? So that you understood what it was like to reach out and communicate with hosts of shows and what it was like to get your clients prepared. And what did your co-founder bring to the table?
So he brought podcasting experience.
Yeah.
He also had a marketing agency, so he is
Oh,
very
great.
process oriented and he can handle all the tech side. I know. I am slowly, it's been painful, the initial like trying to tame me, but I'm there. And I'm ready. I'm totally in on the process. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's life
So,
changing.
but you had to do what you did, and sometimes it's a little easier. Sometimes if you've already got the built up quote Rolodex, I know it's an old term, because you've already been working with clients through his marketing agency, you through your PR agency, but you still had to figure out what your value prop was going to be for folks to hire
Yeah.
you, right? And so and especially in the busy space of helping folks get on shows, that agency space. I know you had to figure it out with your prior agency, but how did you figure it out with Kidcaster?
That's a great question, Andy. And that was a big struggle for us in the beginning is trying to find that ideal client. And we
Yeah.
bounced around quite a bit. And what we settled on was something that we both worked in the past. And that's mostly technology, funded startup founders, C-suite executives, those folks that they have experience, they have knowledge to share, and they're usually bringing something to the marketplace that's
Yeah.
disrupting a workflow.
Nice, nice. And so, then you had to figure out how to reach them. I know, folks, this is so important, but this is what I'm all about, and you all will remember this too. You get cheered when you prove a value prop, because that's how you stay in business. Understanding not only just who that ideal client is, but the language they need to hear, to
Yeah,
build that relationship, but also how are you going to find them? And sometimes you got to pick a really narrow lane to find those folks, right, Brandy?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was what we determined was that most of our clients, they certainly live on LinkedIn. And then we also use a resource called PitchBook,
Okay.
which highlights all companies who are VC funded or
Yeah,
have
yeah.
received some sort of funding.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And AngelList used to always be a great place too. TechCrunch and Crunchbase is another great resource. I get that. And so once you launched and you've got your brand pulled together and you're like, okay, we've got our pricing model figured out and we know how we're going to generate revenue and make people happy and get repeat customers, et cetera. What did you learn from your customers?
well, we learned that weaving of the story together does not come naturally, and that people have a lot of feelings around a mic in front of their face. And so addressing the nerves really, because when
Wow.
people are nervous to present themselves, it comes out in a variety of different emotions. It can be you can sense the anxiousness, but sometimes it
Hmm.
can it can come out in anger or other ways that you're like, okay, I see what's happening here, and it's just that you have you have some feelings around what's going to happen, and you're questioning whether you are the right person. It's almost like imposter syndrome sneaks in a
Yeah.
little bit, like, who am I to be doing this? So we then decided to launch Storycraft as part of our business, which is helping all of our
Right.
clients really build their story because they have it, but they maybe just have never tapped into it before or not in this sort of setting. So
And
finding all that.
yeah, and to take control, I imagine, of that story, because you can have your story, and it's so important. And for those of you, preparing to be in podcasts, it's so important that you have a flow, because you can get squirrel off to this detail, pull on this thread that nobody really cares about. You got to
Yes.
refine that story, and that's how you help them, Brandy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of creating their anchor, coming out really strong. And then what are your key talking points that we want to make sure are covered? And then what are those supporting stories that are gonna help bring those to life? And then to avoid the 7-second stray is what I call it. And that's exactly what you just said, Andy, is that especially in podcasts, because you do get so comfortable, you're like, oh, we're friends. It's good.
Okay. No, 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 I got to write that down right now. 7 seconds stray. Can everybody relate to that? Oh my gosh,
Yeah, you just
Brandy.
start rambling, I've done it before. I get to the end of the podcast, it's been great, and then all of a sudden, I just start going down this road. I don't know where it came from, but I got really comfortable, and it was hard to bring myself back, but I
Yeah.
could see on the host's face that it was derailing. So I have some personal experience with that, definitely have some empathy around that feeling.
But
Everyone's
also,
felt it.
absolutely, and also being nervous, folks, is so, like, you don't know that you're going to be nervous sometimes. And I
Yeah.
tell people all the time, when I started my first podcast as a host in 2012, I had a producer, I had someone holding my hand for a show every week, and I still was so nervous every single week for 52 weeks. And then all of a sudden shifted and took myself over to Blog Talk Radio back in the day. And I've been fine ever since. But even hitting the live button here, it can trigger all sorts of lizard brain responses, like run for your life. And many times too, you forget like what you were going to say. You're like a deer caught in the headlights. So do you practice with your clients to help them realize, yes, maybe something that they might be able to smooth out
Oh,
during their.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do a little mock interview because it is, even if you think you have your story together, once the questions start flying, it can unravel you a bit. And you
Yeah,
just have to be ready and take a breath. And we're all human and we might stumble. And actually, there's some beauty in that too, right?
that's
Like,
right.
you do a live show. I'm sure that there are things that have happened that
There's
you
a
did
lot of
not
stumbling.
prepare for.
You're not prepared for is right. And you learn how to go with the flow. But I think it's so important to have that story pulled together. I am a script person. I mean, I tell people too, my age, it's hard for me to remember anything anymore. And if you want to get points across, sometimes you can memorize, but also having that script there to lean into and hold on to get some of your words and your wisdom out is absolutely okay. You don't have to be
Yeah.
that dynamo at the front of the stage that we all see that just, has their clicker behind them and they're going around and they know everything they're going to say. They're talented and gifted in that way. You don't have to be, but having your story is so important. I'm going to bring the brand up again, because I want people to know how, again, how you help people and how they can discover more, excuse me, customers and get their brand out there to have people relate to them. And so, talk a little bit more about onboarding clients. You told me that you use PitchBook and LinkedIn. Are you advertising as well?
Yeah, we do a lot on Google,
Yeah.
YouTube, other traditional, Google ad
Yeah. Good.
strategies.
Good
We
investments.
yeah, we do podcasts, which has been actually phenomenal for us.
Excellent.
So we decided that that was probably really important since that
Yeah.
was part of what we do is that we go on podcast campaigns. And all of our employees, we have a team of almost 20 now. We're in the process of hiring. So we encourage anyone who wants to, it's certainly not forced, but
Wow, you
go.
guys have built up a big service
Yeah,
company. 20
yes,
employees?
yes, yes.
Wonderful new. Everybody, yay! So how did you fund Kitcaster? Did you, bootstrap or get a bank loan or crowdfunding?
Totally bootstrapped 100%. So my co-founder and I, we were still running our other businesses while we were building up Kitcaster. And we
Excellent.
had, I had a team member that was really passionate about doing this as well. So she definitely helped out a lot in building up the initial place for Kitcaster.
Yeah.
And then we continued to build and hire, and we didn't pay ourselves for quite some time, just building what
Well,
we
and we
needed to
this
build.
still a side hustle as you were building, so you're able to generate revenue from your current businesses to support the new business. I love that.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
I love that. Hey, Mia Voss. Do you know Mia from
I
Brandy?
feel like I've heard this name before. Mia, hi.
Yeah, Brandy's from Denver.
We need
Okay,
to
Mia.
connect. Let's grab coffee.
Get together is right. And earlier, I don't know, if, Rebecca, if you caught this or not, but Mia, on Brandy's LinkedIn, she includes her lived experience of being a parent, being a mother. And Rebecca's a mother of three daughters, right? You'll love Brandy's experience on LinkedIn talking about raising humans.
Yeah,
It's just so, so key.
it is.
Speaking of Rebecca, I want to pop up the scoop on Rebecca and we'll do a little yay, Rebecca. In a nutshell, CEO.com. She's a founder coach, embolden women entrepreneurs to monetize their brilliance. And yes, she's got the Founders Test Kitchen this week. She's launching. That's so exciting. I'm going to put up your LinkedIn URL, folks. So it's LinkedIn, Rebecca Carey, Rebecca Reynolds Moore. Oh my gosh, Ande, can you read? Yes, I can. And and yeah, Mia.
Yes, Mia, we'll connect.
Excellent. And hiring, yes, Aristotle, absolutely. Now remember, folks, you have any
Yes,
questions for Brandy, because the title of the show is how to quickly build your founder credibility and your social capital. A lot of startup founders, Brandy, are coming in maybe for the first time as a founder, right? They're a newbie founder, and they're looking around going, what, I got 3 followers on Twitter. I don't know anybody. My social capital is right, nothing.
yeah,
And they've got to build it up. Or you might have some friends on Facebook, that's great, or IG following you, but you still have to build up what's called social capital, because that makes you more attractive to customers and a great way to reach customers. But also, if you're raising money, it helps with your founder credibility. And
100%.
yeah, and a part of that is your storytelling. So whatever story that you're creating with Brandy and Kitcaster, it's something that you're going to be able to use in many other aspects of your business. So one of my other questions that I had very quickly here is that you talk a lot about brand journalism. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, like, how is this different from public relations?
Well, you get to own it a little bit, right?
Okay.
With public relations, it's more of a, we're reaching out, maybe we have a product launch or service launch, and it feels like it's very timely. There's some timeliness attached to it. And with brand journalism, it's really like you get to build your persona and how you're showing up in the world. And I think more and more, I mean, I think this show is a perfect example of what we're looking for
Right.
in society,
In
and that is real human beings who are kind and open and willing to kind of plunge in, but also to bring everyone in with them. So, that is a really important part of brand journalism, is really letting people know who you are. And Ande, you brought up a very good point about investors, because we've had a lot of clients who end up, they've already gone through Series A, maybe Series B, and they end up getting an investor interested in them from listening to them on a podcast, because investors want to invest in people.
That's right. 100, take that in, everybody. Investors want to invest in people, and the best way to find out who you be is through a conversation like this. And some real resonance can happen, alignment can happen, and it's very exciting. And how that can increase your visibility, but more importantly, your credibility. So, for
Yes.
example, on the show here, quite a few of our guests, our first time founders, have reached funding and have received funding and had connections, had people reach out to them. It's been very exciting when you see that magic happen. And one of my favorite people turning in from Johannesburg, I think, is Sylvester Meyer. He was on the show. He's watching from
Hi,
South
Sylvester.
Africa. He was on the show, and who tuned in but Professor Babu from Brown University's entrepreneurship program. And she reached out
Excellent.
to Sylvester and said, hey, I usually send some of my folks down and bring folks down to Cape Town and to South Africa, Johannesburg. And would you be willing, now that during COVID, would you be willing to talk to my class this year? And that was such a great magical moment. So there's a great example. And go ahead and you can read Rebecca's comment right there, please.
Brandy, this is awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. Do you ever feature founders pre-funding or at seed round? Absolutely. Yes, 100%. It's another great opportunity to start to build who you are. A lot of our early founders, they're also just trying to figure all this out. Like, what is my story? What is this powerful narrative that I'm going to bring into the world and try to attract investors?
Right.
So that has been we've heard from a lot of the early founders that we work with, that they're just able to better articulate what it is that they're bringing into the world once
Well,
they go through these podcast tours.
and I think they also need to have a pro like you help them decide what's important to say and what's not important to say, and how to
Yes.
say it succinctly with some emotional vibe and passion to it that will work. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I mean, it's because what you think is interesting about you, it sometimes might not be interesting to other people.
Right. Right.
I've reworked my narrative many times. So it is, taking the reaction, getting feedback, and being open to it and willing to adjust things when
Right.
necessary.
And it's also important, depending on which show you're on, right? You're
Yes.
going to tailor it. So if you are a tech founder and you're on a SaaS show, you're going to get heavy into the lingo, right, of what that is. Or like our guest coming on Friday, she's all conversion rate optimization, right? So she's going to be talking all about that language. But if you were on a lifestyle based on your product, you could have a retail product that would be very interesting and fascinating to the audience of that podcast host. Then you're going to tailor your story differently. And do you help with that?
Yeah, we do. Absolutely. When we're starting campaigns with our clients, we typically ask, what are your goals? What do you want from this campaign? Yes, obviously to get more visibility for your brand, but there's always other underlying goals that people are looking for. So we really uncover that. And then we create a campaign that covers and reaches all of those goals, which could be, I want to get my technology. I want to dig deep into the tech aspect, but I also want to show, I want to talk about the customer experience side too, because that's really important to us. Also, this is my third business that I started, and I have a lot to share in the entrepreneurial space. So making sure that we've got all those bases covered.
I have a great example, everyone, about how you can be found on a podcast. One of my favorite clients when I was doing one-on-one coaching, his testimonial was, she had me at hello. And he hired me, and it was because he just really resonated with the Anti-Licious vibe on the podcast. And so people tune in and they listen. And of course, video really helps because they get an even greater feeling for who you are. It's a little harder, of course, with the guests, but and Aristotle, I love your question right here. What about bootstrap founders like yourself work with us pre-revenue? Here's the scoop though, Brandy. I'm going to hop in right now because we
Yeah.
love our startups to have a pricing model that's going to work. And so a lot of times bootstrap founders, yeah, sure. If you have money that you can invest into something this important, that's wonderful. But on the flip side, on Brandy's side, as the provider, she really needs to be clear that she's working with founders who do have a budget for what she's going to do. So she can get the compensation and have the business model and the revenue model she's seeking as well. And I say that from experience of being a bootstrap founder and trying to find those pennies to invest in in services like yours and having to wait until I had some more funds in from my customers.
Yeah, but I do want to really quickly,
Yeah.
Aristotle, we do have a product called the podcast guest list. And that I would love to just give to you. So it's basically we it's like LinkedIn, but it's if you're interested in being on podcasts. So we feature you, a little brief intro, bio, things you're interested in talking about, and then podcast hosts come there and then they book a time with you. So that's just something that we've created because we find it is really important to elevate voices, and not all of those voices have the funding necessary to pay for
Aw,
a white glove
thank
service.
you.
Yeah.
Podcast listeners, you take that in too. Reach out to Brandy if you're still in the scrappy stage, which is so important. Hold on to that equity. You still can have an opportunity to get on some shows. And also, boy, the more you do, the better you get. You're going to have some flubs. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to get them in the rear view mirror. It's wonderful. I
Yeah.
love that so much.
Yeah. I'll make sure and share that with you,
Oh,
Ande, so you
great.
can share with everyone.
And so, Brandy, another thing I'm curious about with is how do you reach out to podcast hosts? And because as a podcast host, I have people reach out to me all the time, especially since I was recently rated top 10 for the
Woo! That's
best
great.
startup podcasts in the world. I'm just going to take a moment, everybody, because number
Yes.
one was Masters of Scale. We love Reid Hoffman. Number
Yes.
5, hello, our favorite Guy Raz from NPR, How I Built This. And then number 10, me. And I
Ande,
mean,
that's
I
incredible.
didn't pay for that or anything. I found it like just going into incognito tab and just seeing what was stirred up.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'll be promoting that more down the road, but those are some of the things that can happen. But back to my question, I get a lot of pitches from folks trying to get guests on. Sometimes I never hear back from them after I tell them, who I am and how the show rolls, etc. And a lot of times I have to let them know that they've got to be a founder and they have to be a diverse founder. And so, that's what happens there. What's your Rolodex look like? What's your process for getting your clients on podcasts?
Yeah, it is. It is a process that we have built out over time, lessons learned. We have collected, kind of built our own database because this doesn't really exist. There are a few out there, but with accurate contact information and important info that we need to do our job. So we have kind of retrofitted our own CRM system of sorts with all the podcasts and categorized by whatever industry they like to highlight. So that was a huge undertaking. But my director of operations, Katie White, who has been with me even in my PR firm, so she's been with
Hey,
me for a
Katie.
long time. She gave a presentation the other week, and it was the podcast pitch breakfast sandwich, which is kind of building out this. It was awesome. It was even like the melty cheese. Like, you can't have like the fancy cheese. It actually has to be the slices that are going to melt nicely. But it's kind of layering everything up that a podcast host would be interested in, because we're talking about a conversation. We're selling a conversation. We're not selling a product or a service. That will come as you work through a conversation. But we want to showcase what it is you're going to bring to this conversation that's going to be exciting and fun to talk about.
That's right.
Yeah, so
Make it
very
easy
brief. Make it
for the
easy.
host.
Give a very brief, like, "Hey, I'm so and so, really passionate about this. These are the 3 things that I'd love to talk about. Do you want to schedule an intro call? Love to meet
See,
you." That
and
easy.
and I love that breakfast sandwich, especially like maybe a croissant with the melted cheese too would be wonderful.
Yes. Yeah, it was great. I can't do what Katie did in the presentation, but she definitely broke it down very beautifully. So,
Oh, yay, Katie. Oh, happy to celebrate. Wonderful. Read what Richard O is saying.
I'd like some bacon on that podcast sandwich. Yes. I wonder what the bacon would be.
But
I
look at
feel like that would be like like the real, like the meaty
The real
part of the
crunch.
pitch, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
And as you can see from Richard's icon there, he is Mr. Podcast. Richard, you have helped me so much with my audio, my presentation for years. He's been just a steady friend in my life that's made sure I've put out quality podcasts. So thank you. And a quick hello down there in Virginia, another mother of 5 children, has
Whoa.
a phenomenal business, the
It's
Bow Company,
amazing.
the Bow Shop, I think. Sorry, bows for girls' hair. Oh my gosh, she's phenomenal. Jeanette, I'm going to tell you right now, go check out Brandy's LinkedIn so you can see that she has a whole section of experience dedicated to raising humans. You need to do that, Mom of 5.
Absolutely. Own it. We have to
Own
own
it.
it.
And Sylvester's like, I'm in. I'm so in. Here we go. Really. And Sylvester, just had a beautiful new, I think it's your 3rd child, right? A beautiful little precious baby. So congrats to
Congratulations.
you and your family. Oh my gosh. So as you've been growing all these businesses and you've created this phenomenal place that really adds value to especially founders who are trying to increase their visibility, their credibility, and all of that, how is there a tool that you've come across or a resource that's just made your heart sing as a founder that maybe other founders would love to know about?
Yeah, I'm thinking about all the tools that I use, and the one that I love is Loom, because so much of the email communication is can be short and maybe misconstrued, and when you hop on a video,
Oh my
it's like
gosh.
30 seconds and you have something to communicate to someone. It's I mean, that's how actually, as an organization, we use Loom a lot. When we have an idea and we're like, hey, I have this thought, I want to bring it to you. It just, I don't know what it is, but it just brings more warmth to whatever you're trying to communicate.
Thank you for that reminder. I had a previous guest that had told me about that, and I swore I was going to go and put it to use, and I did nothing. And
It's great.
there's some nonverbal clues that are going to come, right, with your facial expressions, and they can feel and experience you more. And do people will clients open that up? Is that something you can put into your and they'll open it up and
Absolutely.
they won't go and
Yeah.
just
Yeah. A lot of times we'll include a Loom video, a personalized Loom video with a proposal and just walk through it. Hey, here's how we laid it out. This is why we did what we did. This is why we think this is important to you. We're here if you have any
excellent.
questions. We can't wait to work with you.
So now you've got 20 employees. I'm just like astounded because when did you found Kitcaster?
It was almost 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of people coming on to help you and some really great traction. What is your vision for Kitcaster?
That is a fantastic question, Andy.
And we're working on that every day. That may
We work
change
on that
tomorrow.
every day. You know, for us, it's really important. We've got a lot of people entering this space. When we first started, yes, there were PR firms that were working on booking podcasts, but there weren't a lot of agencies dedicated to it. And we're seeing more and more people are entering the space. So for us, it's always important. Our team is all full time, fully benefited, and that's really important to us, that we kind of maintain that quality of care, and not only care with our customers but our employees. Like, it all starts right there, and then it bleeds out into the work that you do. So, making sure that everyone in Kitcaster is good and feels good about where we're going, but we need to kind of figure out how to stay ahead and what we're going to do next. I feel like there's this area where for podcast hosts, sometimes it's hard to get a good sense of who's tuning in, where they're coming from, those demographic analytics. So maybe there's something that we could do there. I don't know.
Oh, that's a great idea. Absolutely. Ways that because you've got them in the stable, how else can you help? And your customers will help you identify what would make their heart sing, other services. And I know your employees. I just have to say, I had a really incredible and delicious moment when you said the bit about taking good care of the employees and letting that filter out and bleed out into everything else that you're doing. So everybody, here we go. I was just sitting there going, that's so good. And
Yeah.
folks, that's what you're thinking about for your vision too, for moving forward. So important. That's all ways to piggyback off what you're already providing and to make that. And boy, getting analytics and anybody launching a podcast, that's for a whole nother story. It's not easy.
Absolutely. It's
Not
not
easy.
easy. We're actually launching one right now
Oh,
called
good for you.
Hosted. Yes.
Yes.
And Andy, you're going to be on it. One of
Yay.
our first episodes. It's been a slow roll for sure. We were just trying to do it right. We're building our processes
Yes.
and we want to launch it really strong. But hosts are incredible. We work with them every day. They're so important to our business. So we want to celebrate them, and that's
Well,
what
and
we're
I want to
doing.
bring up, one of my favorite podcast hosts out there. I don't know, Mia, I can't find your comment, but Mia is the host of Shit We Don't Talk About. So
Ooh,
if you have somebody who's really tapping into some difficult conversation or that has, their business is addressing something that's very challenging or important, reach out to Mia because she is consistent as the day is long. And that's so important, everybody, in your podcast. I've been at this particular live show for almost 2 years in April 1st of 2020. But my Startup Life Show podcast, where I repurpose the audio of this show into, I've been at that for 4 years. And I've been consistent at it, which is how I got picked up by a data driven place that rated me on my social capital, my domain authority, my freshness, and some other interesting things that they used to rank. It was just a numbers game. Thank you, Mia. Absolutely. This is,
excellent.
and she's a local goddess with
I
you, Mia, there in
know.
Denver.
All right, we're definitely getting coffee. I have
Absolutely.
tons of stuff we don't wanna
Absolutely.
talk about.
And you might meet some other great folks that she's interviewed from the Denver area as well. So,
Cool.
what hard thing are you working on right now that the Startup Life Live community can add some wind to your sails?
Well, like I said, we're launching Hosted. That should be fully launched by the end of February, so definitely
Congratulations.
keep your eyes peeled for that. We also are launching our content studio, which is repurposing the interviews. Now that you've gone on them, you've done the hard work, give
Yeah,
them some legs. Get them out on social, get them into a blog post, turn them into a white paper, case study. Lots of good stuff in there.
that's right. Absolutely. And constantly being able to put out content, folks, is that link back, right? It's that thing that will send a nice little breeze your way. So whatever we can do, any breeze we can send your way, we are happy to do it here at the Startup Life Live Show community. All the links will be in the show notes. One of my favorite questions is when, not if, but when you are feeling founder doubt, the hashtag why bother, what was I thinking, all of that. How have you shifted your mindset? What's really worked for you, Brandy?
Well, I have that all the time. We all do. It's totally normal. I've sat with it for days, for hours, for minutes. It fluctuates. I actually listen. I actually feel like podcasts are a really great resource for that because if they're really good and they're interviewing founders, they're tapping into their vulnerabilities. And it's good to hear that you're not alone and to have a network of people that if you are struggling through something, you could just say, "Hey, like this is where I'm having some doubt." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we've
Yeah,
had that doubt before. Yeah, you're fine.
absolutely.
We're all trying to figure this out. Nobody knows what they're doing."
No, I'm always saying it's the best personal development program out there
It
to,
really is.
to
And
tap
you
into.
get to know yourself very intimately, all of your strengths,
Right.
weaknesses, areas for growth.
But I think
So,
you're right. I think it's so important to reach out for podcasts today. The Boston Chamber is having an event, and Anna Foster, one of our favorite folks here in Boston, is on the panel. She asked me, Andy, what are some of your favorite podcasts for entrepreneurs to tune in? Because you're right. You want to feel uplifted. And sometimes it's Tim Ferriss. Sometimes it's, Mark Manson, who wrote that wonderful book, How to
who
Not
was
Give a
it? Yes,
F.
yes, it's such a great one. Yes.
It's so good. Things that will lift you up. Maybe it's Mel Robbins and you're going to tap into her on YouTube and just get some snippets so you can bring your thoughts back to what needs to help you stay focused. And Brent, absolutely, spaces are so powerful. People are really rocking on with spaces on Twitter.
Yes.
And Richard O, being human. on your show has given a big thumbs up to that. Folks, it's true. People hear your voice, then they get your vibe, and then they're able to be more with that emotional connection. They're able to hear about your company, your business, your passion that you are building, and how you're reaching out with customers, and all of a sudden they feel aligned with you. It's that, and you can't get that anywhere else,
It's hard.
but through this. So I know you've been hustling as an entrepreneur since you were 8, but as an adult, how has being a founder and entrepreneurship served you? How has this journey added value to who you are professionally and personally?
Yeah, like I said before, it is uncovered a lot in myself, and realizing I do like to have my hands in everything, whether it be at home or be in the office. I feel like I need to kind of handle it all. And so what I've learned is that that's actually not the best way to move through life. And I learned it through my profession, and then carried it over to my home. So that was really hard for me, because I'm a wee bit of a control
Oh,
freak.
many of us are. Yeah, the hardest thing is, and let their business shine, let their teammates shine. But also, folks, I'm going to take time right now to tell you why you want to reach out to Kitcaster. Okay, this is an investment. Sure, you could get on every list and every feed of all the show notes out there, and you can hustle. Absolutely. Aristotle's going to be doing that with the wonderful gift that Brandy is sharing. But at the end of the day, to have a really great crafted story, this is an investment that you are making in yourself and in your business. It is of course, a tax write-off, but it's a professional investment, and it's going to save you so much time, and it's going to give you so much more confidence, because the time that gets wasted checking out Harrow every day, help a reporter out to see if you can respond to something there, or looking at a different podcast hosts and filling out their Google forms. It's too much. It's not where you need to be spending your time, but you have to do this. And I know startups, we get like this with the blinders on, trying to just get the business built, but you are a leader in your business. So it's very important that you get out there and in front of people and on shows. And you see how many great people I get to interview at the Startup Life Live show. You got to be doing that as well. So Brandy, I'm going to just go ahead. I'm going to pull the slot and we'll see who is going to win
All right.
Arlen Hamilton's book. Folks, StreamYard no longer requires a hashtag. I get to do the spin the wheel with everybody who is tuning in right now. And so let me just go ahead and do my screen share, and I'm going to go and grab the giveaway tool that StreamYard provides. It's so much fun. Okay, can we see that screen right there, Brandy?
Yes.
All right,
Yep.
I'm getting ready to draw. And then, of course, I will find you, folks. If you're not still here, I will find you. Here we go. Drawing for the book. Look at all those beautiful faces.
Oh my
Woo, woo, woo,
gosh.
woo. Aristotle. Oh my gosh, you are a winner today, Aristotle. Woo! You're getting a free copy of, we'll bring this right over here to front and center, Arlen Hamilton's book, and I will pop this out of the here. Arlen Hamilton's book, It's About Damn Time, one of the best books for founders out there, especially if you're dealing with imposter syndrome and you're wondering how to do it, or if you don't see anybody else doing what you're doing. Phenomenal book. I'm so happy for you, Sylvester. I'm so happy you joined me, Brandy, for this delicious conversation we had today.
Thank you, Ande. I had so much fun.
Oh,
This is
you're
great.
just delightful to interview. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and how important this is for founders, for building their credibility and telling their story. And folks, social capital, because the podcast hosts are going to be spreading their podcast far and wide. And there you are
Yes.
on the
Front and center.
slipstream. Yep, with that. And that's so, so important. Thank you. Any last thoughts before I pop you in the green room?
I don't think so. I want to give just like maybe a shout out to
Yes.
Sam Lindy, my head of
Sam.
marketing. She put together that amazing little card for Kitcaster. So great.
Yes.
She's amazing.
And folks, this is an excellent example of how to add wind to your wonderful teammates or freelancers in your life who add so much value. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me. I'm going to pop you into the green room and chat
Bye,
with you
everyone.
later. Bye. And bring up my screen and my banner and say, folks, did we have fun with Brandy and her insights and advice for adding credibility and capital, social capital to your world as founders? I want to tell you who's coming on next to the Startup Life Live show. I can tell you right now that I am going to be putting on my smarty pants for this conversation. And I love amplifying a female tech founder like AJ Davis because this is a really deep science driven data marketing that we're going to be talking about what startups need to know about conversion rate optimization and how wonderful to have a woman sitting there in the seat. AJ is the founder of Experiment Zone, which helps online businesses grow their revenue by improving the user experience of their website using scientific methods. It really is all about taking those visitors to your website, to your e-commerce site, and turning them into customers and then keeping them there. And to do that, you have to know the language. You have to understand this whole conversion rate optimization. I may even need a decoder ring. We're going to really up our game. And how do you know whenever I post a new show? You join the Startup Life Live meetup group. How fun is that? You're going to get alerted whenever I post a new show, meet a new founder, build your network, build your connections by being part of this wonderful group. So until then, I just want you to remember my favorite A.A. Milne quote of all, which is that you promise me you'll remember that you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and oh yes, we say here in Boston, wicked smarter than you think. I'm so grateful you tuned in and upped your founder grant game. Love meeting you, love celebrating you everywhere you glow. I see you, I hear you, and I celebrate you. Wishing you a delicious day everywhere you are. Mwah. Until next time, have a great day. Oh, have a delicious day. Bye.